So good afternoon to everyone here who stayed back post-lunch on the second day of the conclave. Thank you all so much. And thanks to this very eminent panel I have here with me. We've been discussing, like Sneha mentioned, about the relevance of schools, about the social consciousness that has to become part of who we are, be it at schools or in our homes. And in this session, what we're going to do is try and look at all of this in a tangible way. How do we really make this happen? Now, we all know that when you look at a child, that the child is a miracle. Pankaj yesterday, I don't know if Dr. Pankaj is here, right here, okay, mentioned that the source code is your child, that the child is a miracle. And neuroscientists will tell you that, a child's brain has more number of neurons than, even the Milky Way galaxy. And just imagine it. If you've imagined the Milky Way galaxy, just imagine this. So you have a miracle already sitting in front of you. And this miracle is boundless, limitless. And now we're going to look at dealing with this miracle, dealing with boundless energy. And we need to look at how boundless and infinite we should be as nurturers, as teachers, as schools, to be able to interface with boundlessness. So the boundlessness is already there in place. So this session is going to look at border crossings. I have a lieutenant colonel here, so border crossings is going to be slightly, difficult, tactical. I think. But I hope he wouldn't mind just for this one session. When I say border crossings, what I mean here is how do we go beyond the subject in class? Because when a child is born and when the child looks at a plant, it's already interdisciplinary. Life is already always interdisciplinary. What we're going to look at now is after this interdisciplinary opening to the first chapter of our lives, we walk into a school where for the first time I see 4 walls around me. How do I break those walls? How do I break those walls in very specific terms when it comes to math, science, English, geography? NEP tells us we can do it. We had educators who spoke of flexibility. Let's see how we can become flexible. I'll come to the ways in which we do it, or rather, I have looked at it from the point of view of the work I do in Karadi. But I'm going to begin now with, our very eminent writer here. I'm very humbled to be even sitting next to him, who sold over 1 million copies of ASURA, writing the story from the perspective of Ravana. And I would like to ask him, what does border crossing mean to you? You've done border crossings by questioning the canon in literature, but when you're addressing a group of school heads, what comes to your mind first?
Good afternoon. It's a very dangerous session to be at after the lunch especially. And I always had a not so good relationship with schools. I was always a rebel with the teachers especially. So I'm getting scared seeing so many teachers and headmasters and principals and vice presidents and all. Why I had a problem with school, if I may tell, I was a backbencher, perpetual backbencher. Was that it limited my creativity, it limited my, it's my experience. Now things would have changed and new form of education would have come. I'm talking about, I finished my 10th standard 30 years ago, 32 years ago, 89, so 33 years ago. So things might have changed a lot. But the problem is, I didn't have any problem with any of the teachers personally. But it was, and I am finding the same problem my son is also facing, my daughter also faced. Now she is in college, son is just finished 10th. Classrooms are restrictive. Classrooms are teaching whatever is not essential in life. Not only that, my observation, it is teaching you everything that will make you unsuccessful in life, is what I feel. Why I am giving a provocative statement, I hope you won't lynch me. is, is this. In life you need cooperation. Once you start working, you do a business. It's a teamwork. In school, if you do teamwork, what will you do? You call it copying. Right? You call copying and you punish. In which era, which part of life after the school will you do anything from memory? You refer 100 things. You refer the books. You call people and ask before you do something. Real life situation, right? You ask your friends, you ask your relatives, and then come at a conclusion and do. But only in school, you are not supposed to refer any book. You are not even supposed to refer your own book which you had written. So what are you testing? Are you testing the application of knowledge, or are you testing just rote memory? My teacher, I still remember my teacher asking me, I had sneaked in a calculator, Casio calculator at that time. It used to come from Gulf. I am from Kerala, so a lot of things got smuggled. I was in fact school. So I had sneaked in and I was caught red-handed, because at that time I was not that good an expert in hiding all these things. I was just learning.
Now you are.
Now I am. So she caught, and I said, this is a machine. I was in 9th standard. It is invented for calculation. Why should I by heart all the table? But she was not convinced. The question she asked is, do you think always you will have a calculator in your hand? I said, yes. No, you can't have always. You cannot carry a calculator. Now imagine who is having. All of us are having not only a calculator, you are having Encyclopedia Britannica also. You have everything in your hand, right, in your mobile. I was beaten up for my handwriting, because after 5 minutes, teacher will ask, I can't read it, can you read out what it is? And I will look at it, and even I cannot read that what I have written. But now his handwriting relevant. I know this might not be applicable to you, but at a lower class also, his handwriting relevant. Okay, you can tell it is aesthetics and all those things, your finger movement, hand movement, lot of, like how people make all the mantras scientific now. You can find pseudoscience for all those things also. So that's a separate discussion. But even bank checks we are not signing now. Now only place, now I am purposefully writing sometimes, but otherwise only place I am signing is when I am signing the books, my own books. Otherwise I am not signing anywhere. You are using, so I came out and then I had to learn typing. We had a computer at that time. It was like some, what you call, like Bhagavan. It was inside an AC room. One guard will be standing. And you'll have to go inside. Computer has AC. We are all sweating in Kerala heat. Computer has AC inside. And you go and sit for 5 minutes. That's how we learned computer. You had just come in. After that, you had to learn everything from outside the school for your skills, including typing. So border crossing, if you ask me, I will keep on talking, so I am stopping it here. After that, we will come back. Border crossing, what I mean is that schools have created the border. Now it has become not just a duty, it has become a survival necessity for the kids to break that border and do something useful in life. A very, very wrong, undiplomatic thing to say in a school, in a hall full of educationalists and principals and all. But, it's the truth. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Neelakantan. I'm going to now move on to the Colonel here, Lieutenant Colonel Shekar, on this panel. What comes to your mind when you think of, because borders has so many metaphorical associations for you.
Yes.
But very specifically in the space of school and curriculum, how would you think of border crossings?
Right, yeah, good afternoon all of you. Welcome once again to the graveyard session. Any panel discussion which is after lunch is widely known as the graveyard session. People sleep or still think about the jalebis you had. At least now, Anand Neelakantan has ensured that you are being threatened. He says schools are not required. And also thank you to Karadi, the Vishwanaths and Asha Narayanan. It's been wonderful. I'm coming to a conference in Mumbai after a long time. A big round of applause to the entire team. It's been fantastic to be here. And I was just thinking, did Asha pray to Lord Indra? Because yesterday as I was flying in, the plane for the last 15 minutes was so much of turbulence that apparently, if you look at, you would know better, Indra is the most jealous of gods. Any rishi coming down below, he gets through, send Ramba, sort it out. So he is very much the swarg where it happens. So I'm sure they would have done it, and thank you for having me here.
Ramba came?
Ramba, no, Tilotama came, sir. And Ramba came because you requested her to come. Okay, more seriously. Firstly, whatever points he says broadly, there is relevance to it, one. But normally, I'm a panelist who would tend to agree with him. However, because I am now a school leader, teacher, etc., I feel it is my moral duty to defend the schools and its systems. Now, firstly, sir, schools are not only looked at in terms of your books, etc., etc. It has to be a way of life. And you are talking about, firstly, issues where individual copying, etc. Things have moved on. We have still a long way to go. 320 million students in India is huge. However, the school as a system came through the Industrial Revolution, and that much I will agree. You can change the Indian and Pacific Oceans, but the mindset of the teacher is difficult to change. It's not easy. That's something we have all faced, and we have all got to realize and understand, and we are part of the problem. That's point number one. Point number two, in a place where you have millions of people, India's literacy was about 9% women in 1947. As we have to move ahead, you also have a sociological structure, one part of it. Secondly, bringing people into a scholastic environment. Even if they are going to say 6 1s are 6, 6 2s are 12, 6 3s are 18, 6 4s are 24, is a lot better than none of them going to school. So that is a conscious choice taken by the government over a period of time. NEP 2020, now we can move forward. COVID has really taken us back. Minimum 30 to 40% basic learning gaps are there. Keeping this in mind, I'll come back to your original question, borders. Firstly, talking to Afoji, borders are sacrosanct. We don't cross into Pakistan, neither do we cross into China. I won't go into that. But there are areas where we have NWNP, no war, no peace. I'm not talking about our households when husbands and wives talk. I'm only talking about original thinking. So, keeping that aside, do we require borders? Really, we do not. But equally, can you believe that everything is borderless? I have my thoughtful responses to it. My 3 minutes end here. So, with this basic thought that one, schools in the context of what India was in 1947 was a requirement, will continue to be a requirement, whether Mr. Neelakantan tries to copy with his calculator or not. One issue. Second, we still have 320 million students, 180 million of them in the scholastic system. 27% of them only reach colleges. Tamil Nadu 50, Delhi 50. The rest 73 go along with politicians for 2 biryanis and 1,000 rupees and do Inqilab Zindabad. Is it worthwhile for our social system here in India? Then we have the elite. The ones which we are comfortable born up, who can talk about life without schools. With this basic thought process, back to you, madam.
Thank you. That's a very powerful opening by two experts, I think, here, who have crossed the border of the topic to talk about the theme of the conference. Now I'm going to, ask Mr. Pendharkar to take this forward. How would you imagine, going beyond boundaries, specifically in the school system. We're not debating the school, we're already here in the school, but how do we make our experiences in the classroom more fluid?
So, firstly, thank you so much. I began my training as a researcher and a scientist in ecology and wildlife science. And then I crossed borders from there, quit my PhD and went to become a school teacher. And that's where my institute would spend huge amounts of money. There were 7 students every alternate year from entire South Asia who used to get into Wildlife Institute of India. Every alternate years. IITs, IIMs can take a walk. Okay? 7 students every alternate years from entire South Asia. Right?
No.
So the others can take a walk. So that's the kind of competition there was, which I got into. And after doing such great, we had international faculty. We used to have classes at 4 o'clock in the night because there was 78-year-old professors who used to come. And they said, I'm here for 3 days. I'm not going to fight the jet lag. I'll take a class at 4 o'clock. You want to attend it? You attend it. I've got words of wisdom. And in the Dehradun winter, you want to go to the washroom every 10 minutes. We used to sit 4 hours non-stop and listen to these lectures. And then the lectures used to end at 7:30 and 9 o'clock regular lectures used to start. I've had the most phenomenal educators throughout my life. And that's why I started my career as an educator. When I quit my PhD and wanted to go back to become a school teacher at Doon School, my parents said, go ahead and do that. Your grandfather had done that and it's there in the family, please go ahead and do it. Education, we are all educators, whatever profession we are in. That was the words that both my mother and father told me. But the point is that don't get into it 50%, 70%. It has to be 100%. Half-hearted, because Doon School has come to you with a department at 22 years of age, don't get it into your head that, oh, you're so great, that's why. He says you're going to be beaten by the kids, by the system, by the teachers every day. Of course, I had a fantastic headmaster, Mr. Das, who was a mentor, who was an educator, he was compassionate, and he was the one who used to crack the whip at the most unexpected times. So when you have to cross borders, so then I left for emergency reasons after 4 years, and I started my own organization called Sprouts in 1995 and came back to Bombay. Then meandered and changed 7, this was my first profession, then I did 6 more professions after that. So somebody is talking about changing professions, I've changed 7 professions already and I'm considering 8 maybe. But point is that how do you cross borders? So that time I had been given 99 lakh rupees to start an environmental science department. And then after the department got inaugurated, Mr. Das found me in the khad. There's like a little stream passing in the school. And my students and me, we were studying some trees and birds over there. And he's like, I gave you a 99 lakh rupees environmental science department. What are you doing outside over here? I said, this is $990 million worth of education, which you can't get into the classroom. I can't get the birds there. I can't get the smell of the flowers there. I can't get the temperature and the shade and the shadow, the differences in the texture you feel when you are walking in the muck versus on the sand, how the leaf shapes are, the albedo, the reflectivity, all that I have to study. I can't get it into the classroom. Otherwise, I'll have to pick the whole thing and bring it. So environmental sciences, I will teach it there. That was first breaking out of the classroom and getting out. Second was perpetually teachers, we know that we are told, okay, extra class, go to a geography class, go to a mathematics class. I had a HOD who didn't like because I had been directly recruited by the headmaster. My quota was not getting full, so he gave me chemistry as a subject. I'm a biologist, I studied chemistry, so I did very well with chemistry. So the next term, he gave me mathematics. He didn't know I had prepared for IIT, and physics and maths were actually my favorite subjects, but biology was so easy, so I had taken that. So I did very well with mathematics. He's like, now what, Hindi? That would be the next thing I thought, by logic, because he's trying to punish me as a teacher. So, but can we, like we talk about in theater or in other things we've heard about people, a teacher has to play so many roles. A counselor's role, an educator's role, an empath's role, a subject expert role. Can they switch over subjects? In Doon School, they allowed, at least over there, teachers could go for an exchange or go for a sabbatical. After every 7 years, the teacher was expected to take a 1 year's break and maybe go and learn sitar or go and write a book, or you might be a biology teacher and want to do a project in Sanskrit or history or whatever. Books, when we had a book allowance and every teacher could buy a certain amount of books. You are encouraged to write and publish, to go out. So point is that one, as a subject person, sciences, social sciences, languages, we need to have a large vocabulary of all these things. Every teacher has to be a continuous learner. Okay? Do I have 1 more minute? Can I? So we'll have a surprise test now, since we are all teachers. Are we ready? Get your pens out. Open book assignment. Yeah? So let's do a class quick session. Can somebody recognize this? What is this creature? It's not a stingray. Stingray is a vertebrate. It's a fish. This is not a fish. This is an invertebrate. It's been here for millions of years on this planet. It's called a horseshoe crab.
Crab.
Okay, it's a crab found in entire Gujarat, Maharashtra, Telangana, Karnataka, even West Bengal. Very, very large populations, highly endangered. Sorry. Can you recognize this? Bald, it's an Indian bird. So it's called a Brahmini kite. Brahmini kite, found quite extensively along our coastal areas. They come to breed in the summers in the Bombay coast, in these areas where we are sitting now. But we know bald eagle because it's the national emblem of America. They've managed to at least put it over there and recognize it. Today was the day when the national animal was declared. Tiger was declared as a national animal today. Same colors, but not as much importance. Tiger frog could have been a name, but it's been named a fungoid frog, a Malabar fungoid frog. And it was known as Malabar fungoid frog. Suddenly research happened and they've split it up into 5 different species now. So each of them have very, very complicated names now. What's the use of this frog? Nobody knows, right? It controls malaria, dengue, and is getting affected by climate change. They are getting 25% of all frogs across the country or the world actually have got this thing called chytrid fungus, which is causing them to die. If frogs die, we're going to have huge amounts of financial losses. 11,000 crores is our annual budget for just malaria control in India. And this frog can take care of that. We did this poster by crowdsourcing photographs from students. College students, they went around, they clicked pictures from their mobiles, whatever, and it was all put together. Their credits have been given. And we have used this. This has gone to the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court and for protecting the RE. Some of the posters have been put up as you walk in. You can have a look at it. So you can involve students in, research activities. We talk about diversity and inclusion, but food diversity, protection and conservation of, if we ask you the names of varieties of bananas, we all have bananas, but we might not know more than 5 varieties. There are at least 27 varieties of bananas. There are 32 varieties of corn. There are about 14, 15 varieties of rajma. And above what you can see is a farmer's market. Going there is going to teach them a lot about economics. It's going to teach them about the agricultural system, about the climate, and also what crops are being grown and not being grown. So rather than studying it in a textbook in a geography with reality being completely different, they can get a lot of ground. The quick 2 pictures on top, can you all recognize what those places are? World Heritage Sites. Grade 1 World Heritage Sites. Not Taj Mahal, not Hampi.
Indus.
It's part of the Indus Valley.
Lothal.
Lothal, yes. The one on the left is Lothal.
Kalibangan? No.
Okay, the one below, this one over here, that's a Sun Temple. Yeah?
Mothera.
Modhera, yeah. The one next to that, which place do you think that, looking at the picture, can you possibly tell the one in the center bottom, which region would it be, which state?
Is it Maharashtra Valley of Flowers?
No, it's not Maharashtra, it's Sikkim.
Sikkim.
Yeah? And the one on the right, what do you think that is? It's a parachute which has been turned into a trucker's camp on the way between Manali and Leh. I've walked from Manali to Leh 65 days with a bunch of scientists, and we used to stay here. Continuous food and continuous, things. this is the most important thing. Is there millions of years of knowledge that we are giving away? Education system has so much of good systems that we've put in. We are calling it dinosaurs. Classrooms are not dinosaurs. The methods of learning, what we've learned over years, right from the suckling stage to we might be giving them like a cockroach vision. You know, botany is not talking to, English is not talking to physics is not talking. It might be a cockroach vision. But yet there is a lot of synergy. We brought it all together in a certain way. So let's not quickly discard that. We all have reached through that system over here. And very happily so. If you look at the central picture, that is the termite hill, it's seen 3 major ice ages and the world's first air-conditioned city. There's lots of knowledge, lots of research in that. So we need to look more towards good systems, whether it is our traditional learning systems that are there, and incorporate some of them. So I think, all old is not bad, all new is not necessarily good, right? And so let's not call our classrooms as dinosaurs. Name calling, not welcome. Thank you.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody in this room would call the classrooms dinosaurs. But at the same time, I think there are practices which we talk about. And then when it comes to the practical implementation part of it, you're talking about all of us who have come here through the system. But not all the 4 of us are teaching in schools. You left your school teaching job. We are looking at, so this is, you are still teaching in years, right? So I'm just saying, if you're taking a school teacher, for instance, we need to be able to equip the school teacher with the border crossings that we are talking about, or going beyond the boundaries. Does a classroom look like what you did just now, right? So that is where we are coming from, but I completely agree with what all 3 of you have said and the different places from which you come. What I would like to do now, before we move on to audience questions, is that could each of you give one example so that we concretize this very intangible conversation on border crossings that we can incorporate in our classrooms? Because we've been debating and discussing ideas. So if there is one way, you think in a very specific way, say for instance, as a writer, you could look at how your book could be used as history and, for mythology, for critical thinking, for reading. So can we have that one class where, we just call it Beyond Boundaries? That's where I'm coming from. So could each of you give one concrete example that will be like a takeaway for all of us? What is it that we can, in our own individual capacities, and the teachers can do in the class?
Oh, yes.
So could I begin?
The idea appeals to me a lot that all the kids buying a copy of my book. I can see the bag money rolling in, so I am very well for it. But jokes apart, one thing which I would like to say is, please don't restrict the kids. Kids don't have, I am seeing it, my teenage kids, they don't have absolutely any time to enjoy life. The miserable life of a 11th standard, 12th standard student, not even you should wish on your enemies, let alone your children. He had joined some academy for entrance exam, and after 3 days he said, I don't want to do it. My wife was angry. I said, don't do it. Don't want to stop study also, stop study. So we removed him from the rat race. The last thing we want is that. But the society puts pressure, teachers put pressure. Morning to evening you are studying. I started my education after I completed my college. Until then I had not studied anything. I had not stopped my education. I started. I couldn't speak 3 words of English after coming out of the college, to be frank. Everything you have to learn, de-learn and then learn it. Very touchy topic, but to be frank, you are just putting kids in pressure cooker. How many tests you will have? Not even Raja Harishchandra had so many tests. Testing. What it kills is the creativity of the kids. Writing is just one form of creativity. Even physical work, how many kids can put a fuse at the house? How many adults can put a fuse in the house? You have to call urban clap. Nothing. We are not learning any skill which is necessary in life. It is like the old Panchatantra tale where finally he says, have you learned Rigveda? Have you learned the boatman? No? The Brahmin asked, have you learned Upanishad? And finally the boatman asked, do you know swimming?
Yeah.
And Pandit says, no, and the entire life is gone. It is coming something like that. So please reduce the pressure of the kids in studying. Academics is important. Equipping them to study is what is more important. Then they will seek and find out what they want. They will go beyond the boundaries. They should only know how to learn, not what to learn, and testing what you have taught them. Is my humble request as a perpetual rebel from first standard. Thank you.
No, I sort of get where you're coming from, Mr. Neelakantan, that, one way to cross boundaries, if I'm getting you right, is to just let your child be and, you don't have to always teach to assess, is what I think he wants to communicate. And while some of us here may be very progressive, what I think the writer is here talking about is very real. This is very real for a lot of children. We may try and deny it today, and we may say we run the most creative of schools, we do everything in a seamless, fluid manner, but actually go talk to the children, they don't feel that way. They face a lot of pressure in grades 10 and 12. And then this whole idea of, if you do not put the pressure of assessment on them, that's a very different idea, that they will go beyond boundaries themselves. That I found is a very, very interesting, very specific idea. Not easily, acceptable by by the education community. I would say that we can, take a step back on assessments itself. And I think Dr. Pankaj spoke about it. If I were to ask a question, do you need an answer? Yeah. Why can't you let the question, leave be, let it be? So that I thought was a very interesting point. Very well taken, and over to Colonel Shekar for a specific example of what it is.
Yeah, we can give specific. The first thing we really look at is nothing in the. If you want to solve the problems of Delhi, the world's most polluted city, it has to be tackled interdisciplinarily. The physics, the chemistry, the geography, the biology, the English, the arts, the communication, the leadership, everything has to come together, as also you talk about 4 C's, 7 C's, etc., etc., etc. There are no two ways. If you want to sort out the floods and the issues in Mumbai, it has to be tackled interdisciplinarily, period. There are no two ways. You are talking to everyone who understands it and is converted. But the challenge in this entire setup is, we look at India. Out of our 14 lakh schools, 27,000 are CBSE. About 3,000 are ICSE. Another 1,000, the so-called international schools, the Ecole Mondiales, etc. Beyond that, about 12 to 13 lakh schools are with the state governments. And the way they look at it, in terms of how it is looked at, is somewhat different from the way we, and let us accept that we are the elite, looking at it. Point number 1. Point number 2, till grade 8, no curriculum, no board, nobody asks you what you are doing. It's our own reluctance to cross borders, and I'm not talking about the army physical borders. It's our own problem that we are refusing to accept intra, trans, how to make a cake, etc. That would be the second part. Then we would come to the third issue of our own challenges. 1, are we ready for it? In fact, I have always said Indian Army is easier to change. The 8 o'clock assembly time will not change. It has to start at 8 o'clock. The periods have to be there. So my point, We have to do it. Many of us have attempted doing it. The water problem in a place can only be sorted out when everything comes together. We have done experiments, got people to do it, made them do interdisciplinary projects, actions onto the ground, etc. But I would once again focus on the challenges we face. Point number 1, and I have said this before, I'll say it again, the teacher. She's a mother first, a daughter-in-law second, a spouse third. In her spare time, she's a teacher. Do we understand what she goes through? Challenge number 1. Challenge number 2, are the parents willing to understand interdisciplinary? I was told, you are an army officer, discipline means left, right, what is interdisciplinary? I was asked this question day before yesterday in my school, what is interdisciplinary? That's the second aspect. The third aspect, the least effective way of doing it is through these methods which we are doing, but to encompass and get that change to go through, it is an enormous effort which we have to take. I agree, and even he, who is a rebel, was in many ways forced to send his son to a coaching academy.
Correct.
My question is, why did he not stop it? There is a parental angle to it. I am in Andhra Pradesh. In the Kendriya Vidyalaya in Sriharikota, the principal was asked by the parents with all the scientists, etc., from 9th standard onwards, we do not want regular schooling, we want only classes for IIT JEE, nothing else. And this report went in writing to the KV commissioner. It was a real challenge. The principal shared it with us in one of the conferences. So my bigger point is, rather than looking anywhere else, first look within. During the pandemic, when students did not have enough mobiles, in one of the schools I was part of, we introduced Sunday and Saturday classes. Sunday morning, Saturday morning classes. We did it in places and in times which were there when mobiles were available. The reaction, the response to it was fierce. The reality on ground was there, yet we were not prepared to accept it per se. 1. Second, for all of it which we do we pay money, enough attention to teachers' training? I, for one, believe it has to be minimum 100 hours per year, beyond what we are doing in hand. That is the second part. Third, are we paying our teachers enough? Are we attracting the best to our profession? Is it the first, second, or third choices? I'm a soldier. I'm also an educationist. Everyone talks Bharat Mata Ki Jai, 15th August, 26th January. Everyone talks Radhakrishnan Ki Jai on September 5th. If you tell any of you to send your sons and daughters to the army, actually, sir, I have only one son, one daughter. My gynecologist, my phalana. So the challenge is the inherent hypocrisy of the system, of which you and I are part of. Unless we break that hypocrisy, I see that the young man is shaking his head quite vigorously. These systems and processes will not change. And if we have to change that, it has to be a collective effort. And you just talk interdisciplinary. Can any teacher in a political science class be able to explain what has happened in Mumbai through the Thackeray Sena and the Shinde Sena? Are we in any position to explain it to our students in the name of democracy? Do we have any sense of explaining it? And finally, do we have the bloody courage to say some of these things are wrong? The social media, the feedback which happens. So can we as leaders, educators, teachers, question ourselves, are we good enough? If we are good enough, are we having the courage to do it? If we have the courage to do it, do we have the wherewithal to do it? Unless these things come together, borderless interdisciplinary will stay as an elite concept. It will not go beyond what you and I want to imagine. If he is talking about through his book from a different perspective, my simple point is, Yudhishthir did make it a point to make Draupadi as one of his for Yuva. Are we questioning Yudhishthir saying that, yes, what he did is wrong? Are we asking that question in Ramayana? Why as to Ram himself, to tell the public she has to go through an Agni Pariksha? Or are we calling Shakespeare a fool, which I did and got fired by my teacher? I said Shakespeare is a fool because there is 66.33% chances that other than some Bassanio, some fool will pick up Portia's photograph in Merchant of Venice. We were lucky enough, the man accepted what we said. So if you want to have wacky ideas, 9 out of 10 of them will fail. Will we allow our teachers to fail and work through it? I rest my case here.
Yes, thank you. I can see some very fiery points come from all my panelists. But in the interest of time, I'm going to go over to now Mr. Pendharkar. We may not have too much time for a presentation. If you could just give one specific example, I think we may not have time for an audience around either. I can't see the flag bearers. So yes. Oh, we're still on green. So let's go on.
I'll move fast. So first, I'd like to correct that I work as a consultant with many rural schools, as well as with many homeschooler groups. For 15 years, I've been working with homeschooler groups, as well as developed several curricula, and I teach at multiple colleges even now. So yet an educator. And through the organization, I train teachers, so in that part. But my problem with all this system is that we all are teaching competitive education and not cooperative education. The problem with the entire system is that a child has to constantly compete with another. And whether it is Rajit or whether it is Nandita or whether it is the several other speakers who've spoken, a child will get his or her 85% or 65% or 35% from their 100% marks. So it's not that, and if you get, my question is that if a child gets 65% marks, is the child 65% intelligent? Or is the child yet 100% intelligent? Does 65% marks say whether his cognitive skills are good, or does she have empathy, or whether they will be good at farming or they are good at art? What parts of their personality have been assessed by that 65%? So firstly, I think we have to break this competitiveness. We did a program in when I was teaching, and we did a cross-subject teaching. The English teacher, the science teacher, I was the environmental science teacher, the geography teacher, the music teacher, the art teacher, the catering department, the home science department, we all did a 7th standard module. So the curriculum was the framework. We put a flabby, huge, belly, pot belly and big, arms around it. And we taught, so I was teaching them, in English they were doing, I think, Robinson Crusoe or something like that. So I said, okay, let's look at the islands where what kind of wildlife is found, what dangerous wildlife. So in geography, they looked at what kind of islands, systems are there, tropical islands, temperate islands. In music school, they composed music, they learned some different music of islanders. In art, they tried to look at the housing and the clothing, and they tried to do some art around it. They looked at food and cuisine, and at the end of it, we put out an entire festival for the school as a class 7 curriculum. While there was reading happening, while there was all this happening, and each of what used to be done, the teachers used to sit, discuss together, and we used to plan out that this is what I'm going to do. And then the students would, so a whole present topic was then put together. The whole of Dehradun people were called in, and they looked at the present. There was music, there was theatre, there was food being served from the islands, fictitious island that they had created. The entire story, the whole script was created by that. There was vocabulary in it, there was cuisines in it, there was safety aspects considered. No, we can't be on a cold island. People will die just by being on that island. Oh, there are, Loch Ness monsters in these possible whatever. So they understood survival skills over there. So they had a first aid, they insisted they wanted to have a first aid course as a part of this module. So we had a special first aid course put in over there. Then they try to construct, in the carpentry studio, they constructed a small vessel in which they would travel, and they tried to float it on the swimming pool, etc. So there was a complete, and then their physics comes in, buoyancy comes in, the kind of material which in PhDs people do look at material and the material management, etc. So there was a complete 360 degrees look that was there. After 25 years, when we asked some of the students, what is it that you remember from the environmental science? They said, no, this was in geography. Somebody said, no, this was in English. Where they went towards, they remembered those parts, but they remembered that entire festival as a cumulative learning exercise. And they said, every time I go to an island, every time I go to a place, now I start looking at the climate, I start looking at the clothes, I start looking at the food, I start looking at the music. That is holistic. That is, complete. And then, of course, currencies and can we do barter over there, etc. So there was all that everything is not necessarily money oriented. We could also barter things, and we can say, okay, you're cold, so I'll give you my jacket, you give me food instead, or I'll work in your farm for some time. And these are some things they've left, some of them have left their careers and are working in such systems like that, cycling around their lives. So there are border crossings which started at the school level, because we teachers decided that we're going to all work for a whole year through that. 7th standard was possible, but again 9th and 10th and 12th, you compete, and then you leave your engineering degree, you leave your medicine degree, and then you become an actor, you become a filmmaker. Then why are we pushing them up the wall?
What is the option, sir?
The option is,
in a country like where seats are, what is the option? How can we do it?
see, they can become a barber, and they can be, the most
Will
popular
the
barber in the
will
world.
have any social, any way which it can happen?
Look at the waiting list that some of Javed Habibs and
No,
all of the
Javed
world
Habib
have.
is fine, sir. They pay more. And let's look at ground. And I said that
Yeah.
we have 26,000. Take away that number. The aspiration of it, who wants to become a barber? I would be. I'm trying to look at cooperative learning is fine. In this competitive world, I am also willing to, in the army, everyone gets cut off, 50-50, only one becomes, we are the most competitive. Somebody says he's good, that's fine. But what is the option in a world where seats are much lesser?
Okay, so we've not brought in concepts of neurodivergence and disability. The minute you bring in those aspects, children with autism, children with, what is the option? Can they fit into the competitive world? Are you going to take a autistic child or a child with, dyscalculia and dysnumeria and put them into the same system and ask them to run the same? No, we have Paralympics,
If I may come in.
Fair, sir.
Yeah, sorry.
Back to you.
Yeah. No, I think this is a very interesting discussion, and we've started off with some sparks, I think, which people will think about. It's very important that we've raised these points, and I completely resonate with, Mr. Pendharkar in that, we need to create experiences for children from which, they can take science or math or English. But we are now giving them English, science and math and telling them you build the experience, right, of it all together. So it is that inverted, dynamics that is at work now. So it's a very interesting thought. And in fact, at this point, I would like to mention that this is a segment that we sort of imagined, keeping in mind some recent work that, we've done. Karadi Path itself, works, of course, with the many schools that are here, as well as with, in a very big way, with the rural segment in India. To the extent that during the pandemic, we had our teams do a lot of community work where, there is no mobile phone available, no connectivity. We reached out to those, millions who actually go to the government schools. We even had an English Rath. We had a van which was fit with an LED TV, and, the training teams would go into the community and work. So one thing that was very stark to us at that point is there are realities there which, from which we are so completely insulated in other parts as students. The children are insulated, and in private schools we usually talk of safety. Safety is such an important thing. Schools are safe places. We have, a lot of conferences on school safety, that we felt that it is very important to shake this up. And I think providentially this encounter between Shobha and P. Sainath happened. I think she listened to him and got inspired and brought out, a series called the Pari series. along with Sainath, which is a very concrete example. I'm just using this because we are talking about beyond boundaries. A very concrete example of how, it is something that you give to the teacher in a tangible form, where you can talk about indigenous tribes, you can talk about the loss of languages that Sainath spoke of, or you can talk about craft, as a profession that's dying out today. Or you could, I learnt about alluvial soil and red soil from the stories here, but stories that are formulated in such a way that it is palatable by the child, by, a school-going child, and at the same time, sort of breaking the boundaries of what should be in the curriculum of these, minority schools actually, minority CBSE, ICSE and international schools. How do I bring the majority into their experience? So that's how the Pari series itself came out. And that's why we thought we should have experts to debate this whole idea of border crossings. And I completely agree with the Colonel in saying that, is your teacher equipped? Many of us here are thought leaders, but how do I equip my teacher? I'm sure, Mr. Pendharkar is a solution. Writing, the writing or the corpus of novels, Mr. Neelakantan has created is a solution. Because you have something for teachers, if I'm right. Because he had a solution. We have to look for solutions. The solutions may not always rest in the hands of the teachers. She's going to become a co-learner, no longer even a facilitator during these times. In fact, when Mr. Pendharkar was introduced, what was missed out is he's very well known in Bombay for creating eco-Ganapatis. So these Ganapatis, become ocean feed. So that's how he is, I think, remembered by many of the Mumbaikars.
I'm an atheist. I'm a complete hardcore atheist. My concern was for the marine creatures. And a solution approach was, as an ecologist, I said, if millions of people are doing something, I will provide them a least harmful solution, not to pander to
the very best of border crossings. An atheist organizing.
A scientist creating
absolutely
Ganeshas. And being known for that, terrible.
And yet being an atheist.
So, are we on red? Yes. So, I'm going to leave you all to talk to these, very fine panelists, fine and fiery panelists outside of the panel.
For the
Thank you so much.
Male panel completely. We had a international female panelist.
This is rare. This is rare. Male principals are rarer than tigers in India. It's always women who are principal.
Yes. Endangered species.
Seriously endangered. Tigers are easily more available. A male principal running a female specific school, Jesus Christ and Allah will have questions.
See, yesterday I was with this panel on source code. I was just wondering after that, and even now, there's a natural potential in a child and there's a natural way of learning. Now, a very natural way will be like what Anand was saying, that you have something, you start learning that, and there's a very unnatural way of doing things, which is what now we have divided into subjects, or we have said that these are foundational skills and these are these subjects and this is what the child should know, which I don't know if it is a very natural way of doing things. Now, I agree that this is how our system has been for whatever number of decades or centuries and stuffs, right? But where do we say ki that's it? Now we have to go beyond this. I agree that this we have to do it with the teachers and with the same set of parents, and for those 30 crore students there is this 100 crores of inertia which is there. But where do we break this barrier now? If we continue with this unnatural way of learning to bring out this very unnatural way of thinking because everybody has to go to the IIT.
It's a great question. We wish we have a straightforward answer. In the army, we always say the moment the first bullet is fired, your entire plan goes for a 6. It's all your creativity, imagination, everything works.
Can I respond to this?
That's how it works. I'm coming to you, sir. So it's not a question which has got easy answers. That's my response.
Yeah. So I have a corollary situation here. We talked about disruptions a while ago. And my thing was that imagine that we have a pandemic where all internet ceases to exist. What is the solution? That is the crossing that we will be doing, where there is no way that we can connect with the children. we'll probably go back 100 years, and then we'll have to reinvent all the learning processes all over. We have not envisaged that situation. It's a horror story that it's happened in nature. There have been mass extinctions and life has happened all over again. That's what we learn from nature. That's the most natural way of learning. I always say a simple wall, there's been a landslide, the mosses will come, then the grasses will come, then the angiosperms will come. Millions of years of history is repeated in the same place again and again. We will also do that, but it's just, are we ready to equip? Have we learned this evolutionary process? Are we looking at, we can't put a child, there are technologies, we've done a vaccine which is whatever 3, 5, 11 months or 15 months. That's not the correct and the safe way. If a child has to be born in 9 months and 9 days, then whatever, close by 9 days here and there, but 9 months will be required. Premature is premature through the life. The child will have problems for all. So that's what education, even we have to realize that learning has to happen absorptively. There's has to be an osmotic situation that we need to create. That permeability should be there, the flow. If everyone equitable, so there's going to be no flow. There's going to be stasis then. Okay, so that's my answer. Thank you.
Spoken like an ecologist, and on that wonderful note, that we will have to come back again, go back to where we started. Thank you all to this very distinguished panel of speakers.